Hi, good morning. I hope you're all staying warm and safe. I apologize that we're not able to meet, but seems like winter wasn't quite done. I wanted to take just a few moments to share what we would have discussed in class, and give you a couple thoughts. Certainly feel free to email and ask questions, or once everything thaws out, stop by, and I'm happy to discuss it with you. Or if there's a lot of concern or questions, this is a topic we could follow up in a future week. Um, so the topic we were going to discuss is, as a general ed teacher, how you should work with special ed staff and identified students. And so a few sort of big picture thoughts here at the beginning. The first is be part of the team. So especially a student that's identified, there are typically multiple individuals involved in that team, especially a teacher, paras, potentially like school psych, behavior specialist, depending on what the need is. And so be a member of that team. You, as a gen ed teacher, especially secondary gen ed teacher, you'll get emails before IEP meetings of please give me information about this student, which might just be as simple as asking for a few sentences about how they're doing. Always give that information if you at all can. Go to IEP meetings, be a part of the team. Even if you're like, well, I don't know that I have all the answers, that's fine. You don't need to, but be a part of the team, share your perspective. If special ed staff are suggesting interventions or things they want to try them with fidelity. If you try them and they don't work, share that information back. But be a part of the team. Now, one specific thing when it comes to IEP meetings is do not bring up something in that meeting that you have not shared with special ed teachers, staff beforehand. Right. So when you go into the IEP meeting, that special ed teacher, whoever's written the IEP, has spent quite a bit of time beforehand in putting that together, suggesting services they're going to offer, suggesting accommodations, modifications, right? They've put quite a bit of time into that. And so if you, for example, had concerns about the child's reading level, share that with them beforehand, right? When you get the invite for the meeting, say, hey, or asking for information like, I'm really concerned. I've noticed that they are really struggling to read grade level material. Right, absolutely share that, but don't bring that up in the IEP meeting, especially in front of parents for the first time. Also, you are not offering services. That's not your role as the gen ed teacher. So in the IEP meeting, don't say things like, well, they need to have a para with them in my class, especially if that's not something that's been discussed. If you've shared it beforehand, a comment like, I noticed that they're struggling to work independently is completely fine. But you're not offering services, right? Because especially in small schools, you might say something like that of, well, they just need a para to sit right by their side. And the special ed teacher might be one that says, well, I've got two paras, right? For someone to do that, they have to not be elsewhere. So be a part of the team. Don't bring up new information in the meeting. Follow plans that are given. So if there is a behavior plan, follow it. If there are plans in terms of modifying assessments, follow it. Especially if those plans are in the IEP, it is a legal requirement. So if it says in the IEP they get to take tests outside of the classroom, they get to take tests outside of the classroom. That's not for you to decide as the gen ed teacher, oh, they don't really need it for this one, right? Now, if a student refuses services or refuses to use resources, that's different. But if it is in the IEP, follow it. The same way for para contact time. So it might be one where you're like, well, we don't really, as pairs come in, oh, we don't need you today for what we're doing. That is a legal requirement that that student has access to a para for the amount of time and the types of times that are listed. And so that's not your decision, right? If you notice or have a concern about, oh, maybe we're giving too much support or too little, share that with a special ed teacher, but do that outside of, certainly not in front of the student, not in front of parents, and have that as a discussion instead of just, oh, we don't need you as the para here today. Now, the other big idea, so be a part of the team is the most important thing, right? You aren't expected to have all the solutions, communicate, be a part of the team. They're still your student, even if they receive special ed services, they are still your student. So you need to be a part of the solution. It doesn't mean you have to have the answers, but it does mean that you need to be willing to put in work and participate as a team member. The other big thing is that you do not need documentation to offer accommodations for students. Students do not have to be identified on an IEP for you to offer accommodations. And so that can mean that you can do something like, for example, I remember, I don't, eighth grade, maybe eighth, ninth grade, somewhere around there, had a student that the assignment was they were going to present. I don't remember about what or what they were sharing. The student with some really intense anxiety. And so in working with her, we decided that she could come in, present before school. A few of her friends would be the audience. I would get to watch. There would be a few people there, but she wouldn't present in front of the whole class, right? I don't need documentation to make that accommodation, right? I can recognize the student's need. As a teacher, I can say, yeah, that's what you need. One of the biggest hurdles for a lot of gen ed teachers in particular is it does not have to be the same for every student, right? So just because most students are doing it a certain way does not mean you can't change it for another, right? Fair does not mean equal, does not mean the same. So for a student that standing up in front of the class is not an anxiety-inducing event, great, giving the presentation. But to then say, okay, well, now everyone has to do it when that's obviously something that's not going to work well for one particular student is, right, that's not fair to them, right? Because it's not a teaching approach that's going to work for them, right? So you can offer accommodations. That could do stuff like allowing students to share their knowledge verbally instead of in writing, if it's something that you feel like that makes sense for. The other one, and I want to give you just as a little bit of an example, is that ChatGPT is an incredible tool for offering some of these accommodations. And so what I'm taking here is just some background text, like something I might assign in a, I don't know, this would probably be like a ninth grade Earth and Space Science class, right? And so if I have a student that I know struggles with reading level, and I want to apologies and try to get this. I have a reading I'm going to assign. Okay, back. Sorry, I had Windows in the wrong place. Right, if I have a reading I'm going to assign, I know this kid struggles with their reading level. I'm teaching science, right? Improving reading level isn't necessarily the focus of the lesson. I can do things like, say, rewrite the following passage at a third grade level. And I'm just pasting in what, is the article that I might have assigned otherwise. And, within moments here, I have that rewritten. We can use things like create a list of alternative assessment formats for a 9th grade algebra student who struggles with writing. Right. And so some of these are things that, some of the ideas are not going to help. Also is a little bit of a weird example, but those sorts of accommodations and things you can offer at your discretion as the teacher, right? You're trying to make things work for individual students. And so you can make those changes. You can also make changes like exempting assignments, shortening an assignment for a kid, right? So I've had times that you have a student that gets really far behind for whatever reason. And as they're getting caught up, you can look and say, okay, I really want you to do these assignments, but I'm okay if we miss these couple, right? You can make those sorts of accommodations. The biggest thing in communicating to an administrator is that you have justification or reasons for these, right? So, you know what? They were really far behind. I wanted them to make progress. We prioritized the assignments that were most important for their understanding. And to make the goal more achievable, I exempted these couple. Or I allowed them a chance to redo this. Or whatever it might be. Those accommodations are things that you can offer. Also, even if you're working with a student who's not identified, go reach out to the special ed teacher, right? That's their area of expertise. And so if you have a student that you say, hey, you know what, they are really struggling with multi-step directions, to a point that like unusual for the age, go ask them for help, ask them for ideas, right? And make those adjustments. The biggest thing as far as working with students with any sort of special needs is just the intentionality and making sure you are finding and trying things until you recognize things that work for them. That doesn't mean you have to look at a situation or a student and immediately know the answer, but that you are willing to keep trying things, asking for help, asking for resources until you get there. Ask your principal, right? A principal that's bothered by you saying, hey, I don't feel like I'm really meeting the needs of this individual student. Do you have ideas? Someone that's bothered by that question isn't someone you really probably want to work for, right? Because in asking that, you're showing that you are noticing they're struggling and that you want to be a part of the solution and helping them. So anyway, any questions that come up, please reach out, ask. A reminder for music people that the instrument repair clinic is on Thursday. Again, any questions, email, ask, stop by. Once everything melts, ask. And otherwise, hope you're able to stay home and stay warm and safe.